Hey everyone, welcome to the fourth developer roundtable. In this one, we are going to talk about travel powers you'd like to see in City Heroes, or changes to travel powers you'd like to see in City Heroes. I'm Controlled Chaos, and today with me, I have Senpai and Queue. Senpai, go ahead and say hi.
Hey.
And Queue? So, I'll go ahead and get started with my idea first. Well, that's how we'll do it. We'll do idea first, and then we'll talk about any changes we'd like to see to a travel power. So the idea I have first is I'd like to see swinging put into the game. I don't need to have it actually connect to something. I'd like to see some kind of form of swinging, sort of like how Champions Online has it. That's a fun mechanic of swinging. And then later on, add in different effects. So it could be web slinging or with chains or things like that. I think would be a great fun way for players to be able to get around in City Heroes. Now, I know that there'd be some coding needed to be done. I know that artwork needs to be done. And I know animation needs to be done. What I don't know is how hard would that be to be implemented into the City Heroes game engines. And that's why I have you two here help answer that question along with giving your own ideas. So let's start with Q. How possible is that to do swinging in City Heroes code-wise?
So I actually have seen the Champions code base in that regard. So I'm a bit aware of how they implemented it.
Oh, nice.
A key difference between like what City Heroes has and what Champions has is their movement engine is completely rewritten to support some of the things they've done. But in terms of that movement, it's really just a fly mechanic combined with doing the animation and also having the arc on the swing. Everything else is basically everything that's already in the game, so it's not a huge difference. That can definitely cause a bit of a challenge if you're trying to do that type of math just by yourself if you don't know how to do that, and I think that's true of most servers.
Yeah. So let's move on to Senpai. Senpai, how possible would this be to get put onto the Thunderspy server?
Well, Q's looked into it more than I have. He actually looked at the code for Champions Online, so
Yeah.
I was hoping that he would go first.
Well, he did, and he mentioned that, but since you're the lead developer on Thunderspy, I thought, let's ask you, what are the likelihoods of this happening?
Well, I never really thought of myself as the lead developer, but I do all the DevOpsy stuff, so of course if Q wants to work on it, since he's probably got the most experience with it, I would just smoke test it in the QA server to make sure it doesn't crash anything, and then we'll just see how it goes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Well, see, here's the thing. In actual professional game development, the person who handles all the ops and like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, that is the lead developer for that section, because you'll have lead programmers for different sections, you'll have lead 3D modelers, you'll have lead texture artists, you have lead audio, you have lead concept artists, and they're basically the ones that tells everyone what sort of needs to be done and helps manage everything to make sure it all works together well. So anyways, I want to move on, and let's go ahead and let's start with Senpai on what power set you'd like to see added into City Heroes.
All right, I was going to talk about a modification to a travel power, but I didn't know it was going to be in two parts, but I do have one in mind. It's bunny hopping, like yeah, a jump that has more of horizontal speed than vertical.
That's interesting, and that could have a cool animation to go with it too.
Yeah, we could probably just use the jump from Beast Running.
Yeah, but like you said, make it more vertical instead of horizontal, and that'd be really, really cool. So that's literally taking that one and then changing some of the numbers for the code. And so I see that honestly as very easy for you guys to be able to do. What about you, Q? What power set would you like to see added into the game?
I think we kind of covered the main one that I wanted, which was the swinging. I think the other one that Senpai probably has his mind is a modification to a power set. So I think we can probably jump into that one, which is like wall running effectively. Like with if you're in Champions, when you have super speed and you run towards a building, you run vertically up it
Yeah.
as opposed to just stopping.
Oh man, Champions stole my idea. I've never played Champions online. I thought I was so smart coming up with this idea.
Here's the thing, Champions is not the only one that does it. DC Universe also does that. When you have super speed, you can run up walls and along walls. They had that at launch.
Yeah, that's
Well,
something
so-
I have actually looked into a little bit for City Heroes. With that one, it's really just for anyone that's not aware vector math. So
Yeah.
you just have to determine which
Yeah.
direction gravity is.
Yeah, exactly. But is there any custom animations you guys will need to do from that step from the ground to the wall to make it look good?
Well, my plan was just to rotate the entire model to be as if it's walking on whatever surface it's on. But we also there's some code in the game for what's it called? Inverse kinematics, isn't that
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Yeah, so we turned that on briefly to test it out, and it seems to work okay. It's a little buggy, but maybe if we use it just a little bit for when you're running up a wall, it would probably work just fine.
Yeah, so I know what inverse kinematics is. That's an animation thing. And so that's all determined by how the rig is set up for the skeleton. You can do inverse kinematics on the rig so that you're not having to move each individual bone. You could literally grab the foot and move the foot around, and that would move the whole entire leg around and bend the leg correctly the way it's supposed to happen. Whereas if you have regular kinematics, when you move the foot around, sometimes the knee would end up bending backwards instead of forwards and stuff like that. And so that's what inverse kinematics does, which is sort of, it's a nice thing to have. Now, here's a question I have dealing with the super speed, and I don't know if City Heroes has this, because at the time that City Heroes was coming out, this was just starting to happen in the video game industry, and that is blending of animations. Does City Heroes have blending of animations?
So there's no additive blending or anything like that. The way that the animations are implemented was basically they had the initial movement and interrupt movement. So that would be the transition and then the follow-up movement. So they had to animate each portion of that. Additive blending is something I've kind of looked at because with that, that's effectively the first step to something like action combat and things of that nature that can make a game more interesting.
I think that's gonna have to be an episode on itself of what if City Heroes had action combat in it instead of the turn-based rock paper scissors combat that we currently have in there. But that's good to know that how City Heroes works in the background and that each animation has multiple parts to it for switching over to another animation. It's not a blend technique. And the way blend techniques, for you that don't know, is it takes one animation and then it takes another animation and it figures out the animation keyframes between the two so that you can blend the two together nicely. And that technology was just starting to come out when City Heroes released. It was very, very rare. It was a very new technology. And that's the thing with video games, is technology is always growing leap and bounds. The games we have now in 5-10 years are going to look old and different. But that's for a different topic. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and let's move on to talking about some more changes to the power sets that we currently have. So the one that you brought up that I really want to see is the super speed and being able to run up walls and things like that. That's the number one on my bucket list. A number two on my bucket list that I think would be interesting is with the jump animations. I would love to see you be able to do a super jump, or when you hit a wall, you can hit a button that would make you hold on to that wall. Just sort of like when the Hulk jumps and lands on the side of a building and he holds on to that building for a moment and then does a roar or hits someone. I think that would be really, really cool. What do you guys think of that idea?
I think that would definitely improve movement. It's because that's sort of the key reason why people don't pick certain power sets. It's just when you need to go up like a vertical space, like say in Granville, there's not windows you can jump on. There's not stuff you can hit that the physics system lets you stand on. So if you had something like that where you could grip a wall or whatever, that would definitely make certain powers a lot more attractive. In terms of how to implement that, that is something that I haven't thought about as much, but I imagine it would effectively be the same thing we have to do with super speed.
Yeah, it's just changing the gravity and stuff like that. So, Senpai, what are your thoughts on that idea for the super jump?
Yeah, that was my idea to make free running more interesting, is to make it actually free running. So, if you can grab onto walls and stuff and jump from rooftop to rooftop and grab onto curbs and windows. I thought that's what could make free running special, because right now it's just like better sprint.
Yeah, it is. It's a better sprint with a better jump and stuff like that. And that would be cool. And that was one thing I was thinking. And then if you guys have an animator, maybe throw in some tumbles when they land and things like that to really add into it. So let's go ahead and let's move on to some of your guys' ideas of changes that you'd like to see to some of the travel powers. Let's start with Q.
For mine, it would definitely be just lowering the power of the sort of pay to win travels, which are the origin based ones, just because they were implemented late in the game's life to be sold ultimately. So they did exactly what the original powers did. So in the case of like jetpack, it's the exact same speed. There's no difference except for it gets a booster on it. So it's just got a speed increase built in, things like that. In the past, I have lowered the numbers on those, so they're a little bit different, but I would like to make them more interesting. How that would happen, I'm not entirely sure, but at least with the super speed one where you can teleport with it, that's a little more interesting than some of the others are, where they're just a speed boost.
Yeah, that is a cool idea, and sort of bringing those in balance with the other travel powers now that everything is free, nothing's paid for. What about you, Senpai?
Well, I was going to talk about the wall running, and I could go into more detail about that, because I think what I really want to do is have like a threshold where it doesn't matter if you're using super speed, it doesn't matter what travel power you're using. If you just have like a certain run speed threshold that you're going at, then you'll just be able to run up walls. So if you just 6 slot, or I don't know, if you somehow just have a really fast sprint, you'd still be able to run up the walls. The gravity would affect you, so you would slow down until you get lower than that threshold, and then you just drop off the wall.
Oh, that would be interesting, because now all of a sudden I'm picturing someone running up the wall with sprint and then doing a backflip up and over and around and behind the enemy.
Yeah, something like that would be possible. And if you're just sprinting, like if you're going at like a slightly faster than usual sprint, like maybe you slotted it twice with run speed, then you can just about breach that threshold, and then you'd be able to run up walls slightly and jump off of them.
That'd make parkour like really interesting, and players to be able to do some interesting maneuvers and tactics.
Yeah.
And I know that the people out there that have like ninjas, I could see them just playing with that all day, especially if you guys could get some animations where you could do some kicking in the air and stuff like that. I could see them doing some, run up to a wall, jump off the wall, and then turn it into a kick type move. That would be really, really cool. So there's so much that just with that tweak that could be done gameplay wise and lead to so much that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, but I think to make that more useful, you'd probably have to, I don't know, I think it's kind of weird that you can change direction while you're in midair from jumping. like I can't do that in real life. I can't jump straight up in the air and then move sideways. Maybe, I don't know. People probably wouldn't be on board for that, but just make it to where like with a typical jump, you can't change direction in midair. But if you had free running, you could bounce off of walls and stuff, and that would actually make that more useful. And then you could use the terrain to your advantage.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. That would be different. And here's the thing, whenever you make a change like that, there's some people that are going to love it and there's some people that are going to hate it. You're never going to be able to please everyone, and that's a given for anything. Anyways, I think we've gone over this enough. I just want to mention one last thing, because when this releases, it's on a Sunday at 10 a.m. and 2 hours after that, Thunderspy has a costume contest, and there's a great prize that I've been mentioning the last several videos that they have, and it's a $100 Steam gift card to the winner of the contest. That's going to be really interesting. That's going to be really cool. I'm planning on streaming the event and sort of looking around and taking fun in that event. So I hope you guys show up. I hope you guys enter that are listening. Any last words you two have? Let's start with Q.
I think really just a lot of new travel power stuff comes from needing ideas that are interesting enough, because a lot of times when you have something that's, oh, I jump different or something like that, it feels like we could just do that as like animation options for people. So if we hear that from people, then that's something we can look into. Mostly, we really just need to sit down and decide, how do we want travel to be improved so that people don't stop doing it, so they can just use Oro portals everywhere and things like that. Or in the case of Homecoming, having a teleport to every map. That's something we've tried to avoid. So if we have travel that's more interesting, then hopefully that gets people to be more interested in the server and things like that.
That's actually a really good thought, Q, because when you have fun with the traveling around and you enjoy the time traveling around, you don't mind it. And so you guys that are listening to this, join the Thunderspy Discord, join their forums on their website, let them know what travel powers you're interested in, what you guys would like to see as travel powers. They do listen to their player base on their servers. So thank you for that information, Q. Senpai, your last words?
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback off of that. Like how in some servers you can just teleport anywhere basically. Like you can just use that command to interbase from passcode from anywhere, anytime you want, and then you have like a hub where you can just go anywhere instantly. I think that the game has a really nice level design, and there's lots of really pretty little places in like Atlas Park even, and Mercy Island and all those little maps. It's kind of sad that you can just zoom right past them and not really see any. So I would like to make traveling more fun, interesting, so you can just stop and smell the roses. But it has to be fun, not just forcing people to run through it slowly.
I 100% agree with you, and I actually have a real world example for that. When you're driving a car, you don't pay attention to the scenery around you that much. You're moving too quickly. However, when you ride a bike, you're paying a little bit more interest to that scenery, but because you're hunched over, you're looking at a downward angle. When I started riding a recumbent bike and a recumbent trike, I'm at a set up correct angle that I could sit back and I can enjoy the views, the sceneries of great waterfalls, the ocean on one side, the forest I'm in, and things like that is just amazing. So the way you travel does influence on how you see things. So having some changes and updates and even new travel powers on the way to see City of Heroes would be really great, and I do believe a lot of players would run around all the zones to see things in a different way and a different perspective. So I want to thank you both for your time in doing this developer roundtable. I'm Controlled Chaos. I'm going to say goodnight. I'll let you guys say your goodnights.
Good night.
Well, I'm Q, and I hope everyone has a good one.
All right, see you guys on the next one.